topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good afternoon, Dallas-Fort Worth. Welcome to another Ask the Experts, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have a great expert on. He's been with us for a long time. He is a personal injury attorney, one of the top personal injury attorneys in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Sit back. You're going to enjoy today's show. If you happen to miss part of the show and you would like to go back and listen to it, you can go to YouTube, put in Ask the Experts Dallas, and in this case, put in personal injury, and all of our personal injury shows will come up. So, hey, I've got so many questions, so many of you people who wrote in, who texted us, and we're going to try to get all of your questions on today. Let me welcome attorney Mark Underwood. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Steve. I always feel like I ought to clap after you do that introduction. It gets me all fired up for doing this show.
So tell me something. Is it still real hot up there?
Crying out loud. On Monday, God bless us, it was 113 degrees.
No way.
That's not 103. That's 113. 113 degrees. You know, it was so hot that the devil was afraid to come to Dallas.
Oh my God. I'm from Dallas-Fort Worth area. And gosh, in the wintertime, we'd get the ice storms, we'd get cold weather, sometimes a little snow. In the summertime, it'd be like around 101, 102, 103. And now I'm hearing these, hellacious numbers. And I guess your glasses must fog up when you come out of the car.
No, you're you're wrong about that, Steve. Your glasses don't fog up when you get out of the car. Your glasses melt to your face. It'll actually burn the sides of the glasses that go back to your ears. It'll actually put a red mark on your face.
Wow. I'm just blown away. Well, Mark, what I'm finding out is more and more people are finding the show. Our numbers are crazy. And there's so many people who are listening for the first time today. Tell people about your background and about your law firm.
Well, when I'm not struggling with the insane heat that we have in Dallas-Fort Worth, I'm a personal injury lawyer up here in McKinney. We do
He's got a comedy act.
Yeah, we do a wide variety of cases, from some of the very largest cases in the country, environmental disasters, explosions that have blown up parts of towns, coal mines, to car wrecks, and everything in between. So we've got a great team of lawyers and staff that work really well together to move your case from the start to the finish line.
How long have you been in practice for, Mark?
Well, enough to lose most of my hair in the back of my head, that's for sure. But 34 years ago. So,
wow.
And you know how many years that is in dog years? That's like 238. So I've been a lawyer for 238 years.
And you also still practice law in West Virginia?
Yes, we have an office in West Virginia also. The main office here in McKinney, Texas, where, again, it's so hot that the devil won't travel here. But
Unbelievable.
we have an office in West Virginia.
You know, we think that everybody knows what a personal injury attorney does, but believe it or not, if you've never had a problem before, auto accident, dog bite, slip and fall, you might not know everything that a personal injury attorney does and works on. Tell people about the type of cases you handle.
Well, all right, let's talk about the cases I worked on today. So the first thing I did this morning, I had a case where a young lady was at a bar in Houston, Texas, and she was either drugged or overserved, and she decided to sleep it off in her car. And when she was sleeping it off in her car in the parking lot, a Houston police officer came up to her car, forced her to get into his patrol car, and he took her home and sexually assaulted her. And
oh my gosh.
Yes, and he actually pled guilty to one of the offenses that he was charged with. So we have a civil case against him and the bar that he worked for. So that's how I spent my morning. Then this afternoon, that's an interesting case. This afternoon, you know, with the Oppenheimer movie out, it really makes my afternoon interesting. So for the afternoon, I had a court hearing by Zoom with a federal judge in Columbus, Ohio, about radiation near the Piketon Uranium Enrichment plant, which is about an hour and a half south of Columbus, Ohio. It was built as part of the Manhattan Project that the Oppenheimer movie is focused on. And there was a middle school there called Zons Corner Middle School where they've had to shut the middle school down because it's contaminated with radiation from the nearby uranium enrichment plant. And then we have a bunch of kids that have died from some really, really weird cancers that we allege have been caused by exposure to the radiation that has been found in their middle school. So that's what I did this afternoon.
Wow. Wow.
So it's kind of a variety of interesting stuff.
Well, now, do those kind of cases take a long time to settle?
Well, you know, that Piketon uranium enrichment case, my children and grandchildren, if they ever become lawyers, will probably be working on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so and there's been a series of these types of cases all across the country. Savannah River was one. Rocky Flats up around Denver was one. There's another facility in Paducah, Kentucky, and of course Oak Ridge, Tennessee, is another weapons grade uranium facility, and there have been lawsuits arising out of nearly all of those, because when we first started enriching uranium back in the 40s and then of course into the 50s, we, to a large extent, we really didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So a lot of those facilities seem to have higher levels of radiation around them.
Mark, what's you heard anything that's going on with the derailment in Pennsylvania? I mean, all of a sudden we were hearing all these horrible stories about the water being green and people getting sick. Now you don't hear anything about it.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to really follow that one closely, Steve. I'll try to remember that before our next show and try to give you an update on what's going on.
Well, it was such big news, and all of a sudden it's just fallen off.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of those are huge news until something new comes along. I can remember back when we did the Upper Big Branch coal mine explosion that killed 29 people. that was the biggest news in the country for about 6 weeks. And then in about week 6, the Gulf oil spill happened. And the Gulf oil spill knocked the Upper Big Branch case right out of the news. And of course, everybody remembers the Gulf oil spill.
Hey, Mark, don't you wish you could represent some of those families in Maui?
Yeah, those are some interesting cases. There's a great lawyer from the San Antonio area, Michael Carter Watts, and he did some cases very similar to that up in Northern California. It happened a few years ago. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that Maui case.
Boy, it gets weirder every day. I mean, they're hiding about the deaths, and there's some strange things. But anyway, we'll get to that. I've got all these letters that people have written in, and they're really marked across the board. It's Plano, Garland, Richardson, Dallas, Arlington. They're all across the board. So let's get started. We're going to start with Robert first in Plano. He wants to know, what is the responsibility of an attorney when it comes to auto accident injury? How is the value of the case determined?
So, hey, the value of the case is determined by an analysis of what a jury might give you, and taking into consideration the ability to prove liability. Lots of people have come up with these rules of thumb regarding the values of cases. They'll take a multiplier of the medical bills. There is even artificial intelligence being applied to determine the value of cases nowadays. But really, the only way to value a case is by comparing it to previous jury verdicts in similar cases. So if somebody tells you they're going to pay you 2 times your medical bills, or 3 times your medical bills, or 1 time your medical bill, or 100 times your medical bills, they're not very good lawyers, or they don't know what they're talking about. The way you do it is you get into databases of previous jury verdicts for similar facts, similar injuries, and you do an analysis about how similar your case is to those previously determined cases, and come up with an educated guess as to what the value of the case is. So I know, clients always come into the office. I got this case. How much can I expect? A lot of clients come into your office and ask that. Well, they're already spending the money. They're going out to go on vacation, or buy a new car, or pay for future medical bills, and they want to know how much they're going to get. And we always, as much as we possibly can, until we know a lot about the case, we know what the past medical bills are, we know what the future medical bills are, we know how much time you've lost from work, how much time you lose from work in the future, whether or not you have permanent complaints of pain, whether or not you have any disfigurement. All of those things would go on a verdict form for a jury to fill in if you win the liability case. And that's how you tell what the value of the case is.
Is it normally a jury trial, Mark?
Nearly always. And it's, it's kind of interesting. Various times when, and depending upon the jurisdictions, sometimes in some really conservative jurisdictions, it's tough to get a finding of liability. So you think, well, maybe it is better to go with a jury. But, in my experience, I trust the hands of 12 people on a jury more than one person seated on top of the podium in a robe. So normally it is a jury trial.
What determines that? Do you ask for a jury trial? I mean, what determines if the judge is going to make a decision?
Here's what determines. I love it. She just asked me a question that I just absolutely love. Who determines whether or not you get a judge trial or a jury trial? The what determines that is the Seventh Amendment to the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution gives us all a constitutional right to a jury trial in a civil action for the causes of action that exist at common law. And there's all that same provision is actually in the Texas Constitution also. So, the question is, how do we get a jury trial in civil cases? The way you get it is because it's one of your guaranteed constitutional rights. It's a constitutional right that's just as important as the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, and it's just as important as the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Whenever we're picking a jury, one of the things I always ask people, can somebody tell me what the Seventh Amendment is? Of course, nobody knows what the Seventh Amendment is. They know what the First Amendment is, they know what the Second Amendment is. And once I explain it to them, I ask them the question, which is more important? The rights under the First Amendment, the rights under the Second Amendment, for example, to bear arms, or the rights under the Seventh Amendment? And what people ultimately conclude is that they are all equally important.
I got to throw something in. My son heard our last show, and he said, Dad, you got to promise me that you will bring this up during the next show with Mark. And I've told you about this before. He tried to handle the case himself. My son is a true salesman, thinks he can negotiate with Jerry Jones. Thinks. And he said, Dad, I was trying to save some money, and instead, by representing myself, it costs me money. He said, I got a lousy $2,000. I know if I would have had an attorney, I would have probably gotten $30,000, $40,000. And he said, make sure that your audience understands you're not saving any money by trying to handle it yourself. So I wanted to throw that in.
Well, especially if you have serious injuries. I mean, if you had to go to the emergency, you had to get into an ambulance, you had to go to the emergency room, you had to go for physical therapy, might have had to have neck surgery or back surgery. Clearly, you are not going to do very well if you are not represented. If you've got $1,000 in property damage and nothing else, well, maybe you want to go ahead and handle that yourself. But if you have substantial or significant injuries, you better get a lawyer.
Mark, I don't understand based on how you charge. I mean, a person can come in your office, you're going to sit down, you'll have probably 100 questions for them, and it doesn't cost them one dime to come in there and sit down with you, and you don't make your money until the end, depending on how much you got your client.
Yeah.
So there's no money up front.
No money up front. It's all done on a contingency, and it's a real gambler's business. And you gotta have some confidence and some balls to be in this part of the legal practice, because I've had some cases that have gone. The West Texas fertilizer plant case basically went for about 8 years before we got paid.
Wow.
So you gotta. It's a part of the industry that's got low overhead to get into the business. I mean, you basically just need some office space and a computer to start out. But each step of the way to grow your practice takes just huge investments, and it's getting more difficult every day because of the medical liens that we're having to deal with. But we like it. Wouldn't do anything else, and probably half of us, nobody else would have us. So we do it.
I know this next listener is a cousin or something, a relative of yours. Jack in Garland says, I've listened to several of your shows now, and I really like the knowledge and how you communicate it. What types of cases do you work on?
We work on personal injury cases on a contingency basis. Basically, we help people get their life back when disaster strikes. That's our slogan. You know, it's right there on our logo. When disaster strikes, we'll help you get your life back. So, we talked at the top of the show about some of the stuff we worked on today. Tomorrow I've got a case I got to work on where husband and wife had been married for 50 years. They were going to celebrate their wedding anniversary, and a gentleman crossed over the center line and ran head first into him, ended up killing both of them.
Oh my gosh.
Horrible case, so that's a car wreck case. I had a similar case to that one time where husband and wife went to a hotel to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. They got the honeymoon suite that had a jacuzzi tub in it. And as the gentleman was climbing out of the jacuzzi tub, he slipped and broke a couple of his ribs, punctured his lung, and he ended up dying a few days later of a heart attack. Well, we were able to prove in that case that the tile that had been used around the hot tub and the cleaning product that they had been using made it very, very slippery. The coefficient of friction was way less than what it was supposed to be according to code. And we took that case on and got a good reward for the wife. So we do a broad variety of personal injury cases.
So, like, you do workers' comp, medical malpractice, product liability?
We do. We don't do workers' comp. We do products liability. Early on, we handled, one of the early Toyota 4Runner cases. Still not allowed to talk about that case, probably. Where a young lady who ultimately became a lawyer in Texas was rendered a quadriplegic in a Toyota 4Runner rollover. There was one other area you asked me about just now. What was it?
Medical malpractice.
Medical malpractice. We absolutely do medical malpractice. We have probably 10 medical malpractice cases in the office right now. We have one case involving the implantation of a cardiac defibrillator device, and several others. We do medical malpractice also.
Okay. I want to give everybody your phone number. I already have two people asking, so they must be listening because we're running your phone number below on the screen. Give everybody your phone number, Mark.
Best phone number to get a hold of us is 844-UNDERWOOD. That's toll free, 844-UNDERWOOD. And if you're not very good at spelling and you're better at numbers, which is probably just the opposite for me, I'm better at spelling than numbers. The numbers for that are 844-863-3796. 844-863-3796. That's toll free, 844-UNDERWOOD.
Mark's with us every month. He'll be back with us again next month. Remember, if you've missed part of the show or you want to turn a friend or relative who has possibly a personal injury problem, just go to either iHeart, their library, and put Ask the Experts in their Dallas-Fort Worth. It'd be under personal injury, or you can go to YouTube and do the same thing there. Mark, it is always a pleasure to have you on. You really explain everything perfect except for the weather. I don't think you should be a weatherman. But we love having you on, and have a wonderful and safe weekend.
Thank you very much, Steve, and let's hope it cools off.
Yeah, really. We'll see you again next month, Mark.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Steve.
That was attorney Mark Underwood. He's our personal injury expert, and Next week, we will have 2 new experts on with us. We're so glad you joined us today. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Stay cool. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.